Striving for dignity, peace and harmony in society has been a long struggle for Uganda. Uganda is a country of diverse cultures and beliefs. This diversity in itself is a human rights challenge. Indeed, Uganda has seen its fair share of turbulent times. During the period from 1966 to 1986, Uganda was characterized by political instability, civil strife, which resulted into human rights violations, arbitrary arrests, detention without trial, torture, killings and forced disappearances, commonly known as bandagari, were the order of the day. Most of these atrocities were state-inspired. It was a sad chapter in Uganda's history. In 1986, the National Resistance Army government, led by President Yoweri Museveni, came to power. It started on the road to recovery.
Nobody should think that what is happening today or what has been happening in the last few days is a mere change of guards. This is not a mere change of guards. I think this is a fundamental change in the politics of our country.
Uganda began a campaign to rebuild itself into a state with policies that favor the respect of rule of law, democracy, access to justice, and in general a country that values the promotion and protection of fundamental human rights. Simply put, fundamental human rights are those rights that accrue to you by the fact that you are a human being. The word fundamental means that these rights are inherent to all human beings and basic and essential for the individual. Protecting and observing these rights was a consensus of all Ugandans. In a bid to bring back the rule of law and respect for human rights, an ad hoc commission known as the Commission of Inquiry into Violations of Human Rights, the Odere Commission, headed by Justice Arthur Odere, was set up. Its mandate was to investigate human rights violations that took place in Uganda from independence to 1986. In one of its recommendations, the Odere Commission recommended for the establishment of a permanent human rights institution that would monitor the human rights situation in the country. In 1995, Uganda Human Rights Commission was birthed by the 1995 Constitution of Uganda. The establishment of an autonomous National Human Rights Commission by the Government of Uganda reflected its commitment to effective implementation of human rights provisions under the Constitution and the regional and international human rights instruments. The Uganda Human Rights Commission was the first of its kind in Uganda and still is. The Uganda Human Rights Commission has a wide range of functions and powers. These were bestowed on it by Articles 52 and 53 of the Constitution and the Uganda Human Rights Act of 1997. It was established to protect and promote human rights and freedoms in Uganda. The Commission can inquire into the actions of any person and institution against whom a complaint has been registered for violation of human rights.
We want to call upon Ugandans to come to the Commission. Our services are free. We've installed through Jeros toll-free lines, and we urge the public to use us because we can reach many places. So let the public know they are right, let them utilize us.
The responsibility entrusted to the Commission under the Constitution cannot be adequately fulfilled without close ties with partners.
The Human Rights Commission Act requires us to work closely with civil society organizations. So we work closely with civil society organizations.
Above all, The Constitution requires that the Commission works closely with Parliament.
There is a committee in Parliament, the Human Rights Committee, to which we report. But we also report directly to the Speaker. The Commission is independent, and because it's independent, it does not report through any ministry. Our funds are appropriated directly from Parliament.
The Constitution provides for the independence of the Commission, meaning that it executes its mandate without influence or direction from anyone, as stipulated in Article 54.
For example, issue our annual reports, and that annual report contains our views on certain agencies of government as far as observance of human rights is concerned. Now, if we were not independent, we would not be as explicit and as open and as forthright as we would want to be.
The functions of the Commission include investigating complaints of human rights violations, conducting tribunals, inspecting places of detention, conducting civic education, conducting research on human rights issues, compiling annual human rights reports and periodic reports, monitoring government's compliance with international treaty obligations on human rights, and review of bills before Parliament. Uganda Human Rights Commission has also been instrumental in training the staff of other national human rights commissions in Africa.
In fact, as a matter of fact, in I think 3 years ago, 2012 I think it was, we were given the award of the best human rights commission in Africa when we were in Yamoussoukro in Cote d'Ivoire, or what we call Ivory Coast.
Structure of the Uganda Human Rights Commission. At the helm of the Commission is the chairperson. He steers the Commission together with 6 other commissioners. Currently, the chairperson of the Commission is Mr. Medi Kagwa. The Commission also has a secretary, Mr. Gordon Mwesije, who is responsible for carrying out policy decisions of the Commission, the day-to-day administration and management of the affairs of the Commission, among other duties. The Commission performs its work through 5 directorates, situated at the Commission's head office at Twed Plaza, Plot 22 Lumumba Avenue, in Kampala. The directorates include the Directorate of Finance and Administration, the Directorate of Regional Services, the Directorate of Research, Education and Documentation, the Directorate of Monitoring and Inspections, and the Directorate of Complaints, Investigations and Legal Services. All these directorates are hinged onto the main functions of the Commission and provide administration, functional directions, guidelines and technical backstopping to the regional establishments. Directorate of Finance and Administration.
Support and administration is quite big. It takes on day-to-day operations of the head office, day-to-day operations of the 10 regional offices, as well as day-to-day operations of the 10 field offices.
Uganda Human Rights Commission is primarily funded by the government. However, the Commission also gets funding from development partners. The biggest hindrance of the Commission is inadequate funding to execute its core mandate.
Because if we had that adequate allocation, we'd still actually be having a robust structure. Probably you'd go to whichever part of the country and find Uganda Human Rights Commission.
The Directorate of Research, Education and Documentation. The constitutional mandate of human rights research, education and documentation of the Commission is performed under this directorate. Conducting research on human rights issues. Under this directorate, the Commission conducts research and prepares reports on emerging human rights issues. The issues for research are informed by the types of complaints received at the Commission and prevalent issues that have an impact on the enjoyment of human rights. Research findings inform action that influences policy formulation and decision-making concerning human rights issues.
Once research has been done, it provides a platform for evidence-based advocacy.
Conducting civic education on human rights. Human rights education is probably the heart of the Commission's mandate. Civic education enables active, effective and meaningful participation of the citizenry in matters of their governance. It enables the citizens to make informed decisions and hold their leaders accountable in ensuring that human rights are protected and promoted. Furthermore, civic education is intended to inform the citizens of Uganda about their duties and responsibilities. The Commission conducts human rights training seminars and workshops for law enforcement officials, security agencies, government officials, and civil society organizations. Furthermore, the Commission conducts community meetings, also known as barazas, whereby grassroots communities are engaged in issues of human rights and civic duties.
You have to know about human rights in order for you to be able to claim your right. Then for the duty bearers, and these are the government officials, these are the health workers, we conduct human rights education for these particular groups of people so that they can know what their roles and duties are in as far as facilitating the process of enjoyment of human rights is concerned.
The Commission focuses its energies on reaching grassroots communities. This forms the bulk of its work.
Grassroots communities are a fertile area for human rights violations. So when you engage grassroots communities and empower them with information on rights, on duties and responsibilities, then you are sure to get action in as far as reporting cases of human rights violations is concerned, but also in ensuring that human rights are not violated in communities.
With the recent acquisition of civic education vans, the education program of the Commission is poised to become even more robust.
We acquired 2 new civic education vans to conduct what we call village road shows. So what happens is that we move from village to village or trading center to trading center, talking about engaging people on issues of human rights, issues of governance. But what difference does it make is that it is visual. We use films, we use documentary, we use dramas so that we can engage the people that we are with at that particular point in time.
We would want to see many more Ugandans understand their rights. You cannot claim a right unless you know it. We need to do a lot of civic education to make the people know their rights so that they can apply them and can use their rights to demand of government accountability in various things.
Aba Human Rights Commission lero batutuuseeko nga basomesa abatulya bingi betubadde tetumanyi ku ddembe ly'obuntu nga wawo oyinza okuddukira nga bakunyigiriza nga oyinza kubasangawa tutegedde ngeri ki gyennyinza okukolamu okuyitamu okwerwanirira nga banyigiriza. Ekirala nja kusaba gavumenti eyongereyo emisomo bwegiti mu byalo, abantu abawulira ebiwulire ku radio n'ababiraba ku TV basobole okufuna at least contacts wa gye bayinza okuddukira nga banyigiriziddwa. Kirala nja kubeebaza olw'omulimu gwe bakoze nti bakikoze mu ngeri eri simple, basobodde okutambulako around the market, basobodde okugaba obupapula, basobodde n'okugaba t-shirt eri abantu bebogeddeko nabo.
The Commission has ring-fenced the youth as a special demographic group for human rights education. Schools are particularly targeted. The Commission has established school human rights peace clubs, which clubs are meant to nurture human rights activism in schools.
They do various activities. They are involved in drama groups, they are involved in debates, they go out into their communities to talk about human rights, they do radio talk shows, they visit prisons. So by this you are creating actors of change among the youth to drive the human rights message forward.
The Commission developed human rights readers for primary schools to be used from primary 1 to 7. In collaboration with its civil society organization partners, the Commission worked with the National Curriculum Development Center to include human rights in the new curriculum for secondary schools. The Commission has also developed and disseminated education and communication materials targeting different audiences.
We develop materials with thematic human rights issues, posters, brochures, handbooks. We do billboards. We do documentaries so that we package our human rights message appropriately depending on the target group we are focusing on.
Documentation of human rights materials. At the Commission, documentation is about warehousing publications and materials about human rights.
It's a depository of human rights literature, human rights papers, in one place. We have libraries. We have a library here at the head office. We have libraries in our 10 regional offices so that we facilitate the public's access to information when it comes to human rights.
The Directorate of Complaints, Investigations and Legal Services. This directorate performs the constitutional mandate of receiving and investigating complaints of violations of rights and freedoms. The Directorate can also initiate its own investigations. The Directorate also offers legal services to the Commission and to those who have suffered human rights abuses. Who may complain? The victim of an alleged human rights violation, a relative, friend, legal representative, etc., may make the complaint on behalf of the alleged victim if the victim cannot personally make the complaint. Any individual organization alleging with facts a series of massive violation of human rights or people's rights. Any person may complain before the Commission, not only on his or her own behalf, but also on behalf of others who are also similarly affected by the act he or she is complaining about. Any person authorized by the victim. If the Commission feels that the matter merits its attention, appropriate action is taken.
We can do so many things. One, we can mediate, because some cases demand urgent attention. Issues of family disputes, issues of children are of utmost importance and they require an urgency about them. So for most of those cases, we mediate them. We bring the parties together and we see how we can resolve these complaints through alternative dispute resolution.
If mediation fails, the matters are referred to the tribunals of the Commission.
So you are the first person to reach on the scene.
Tribunals at the Uganda Human Rights Commission have powers of a court as provided for under the Constitution. The Commission conducts tribunals to make a final determination on whether or not complaints reveal human rights violations.
And that tribunal will summon the parties and will hear them out based on the principle of fair hearing. And both parties will tell their stories and will tell their positions. And the presiding commissioner who sits in as a judge makes a decision or determines the case. And as such may award either compensation. Compensation is the most awarded remedy. Or may grant any other legal remedy. It could be a restitution, it could be injunction, or any other legal remedy in law.
If a person is dissatisfied with an order of the Commission, he or she has a right to appeal to the High Court. The services of the Commission are free of charge. For the tribunal, the Commission even pays the victims and their witnesses their transport refund.
And because these services are free, people are comfortable to come and talk to us and lodge their complaints. And we take these complaints forward, and at the end of the day, they receive redress, which they could not have received in any other institution. So that for us is a plus.
Natulugunyizibwa kuba bankuba ne bambuuza nga bankuba bwe bambuuza ne mbabuulira kisa kyatuuka ne banzizaayo kati era bo ne baddamu ne bankuba ate ku luno bankuba bubi nnyo kuba luli bankuba ne ku luno badda mu mabwa ne mala ennaku bbiri nga sitegeera biri ku nsi era ntwala omukisa okwebaza Human Rights Commission ennyambye nesobola okunkolera nesobola okulongoosa buli kimu ekyali kikyamye era nabo we bali baba nga bantulugunya tubagenda kuddayo kukikola era Human Rights njebaza erwaniridde eddembe lyange nga nze omuntu owa bulijjo.
Complaints not handled by the Commission. Any matter pending before a court or any matter already determined by a court of law or judicial tribunal. Interstate matters. any matter relating to the exercise of the prerogative of mercy, any matter that happened before the coming into force of the 1995 Constitution, matters of purely civil nature, for example relating to breach of contract, any violation that is not reported within 5 years from the date of its occurrence, except where the person was prevented from lodging the complaint. The Directorate of Monitoring and Inspections. This directorate is charged with monitoring the state of human rights in the country and reporting on it. Monitoring government's compliance with international treaty obligations on human rights. Uganda has ratified various international human rights treaties. The Commission monitors the government's compliance with the international treaties it has ratified through monitoring the human rights situation in the country. It also monitors the level of enjoyment of civil, political, economic, social, cultural rights, and the rights of vulnerable groups such as women, children, persons with disabilities. This is to determine whether or not Uganda is complying with its obligations under the international treaties it ratified. The Directorate also promotes the human rights-based approach to development. Inspecting places of detention. The Commission inspects places of detention in order to assess the condition of suspects or inmates and makes recommendations thereafter. The Commission inspects police stations, prisons and military detention centers, and its assessments are based on the living conditions of the suspects or inmates, among other things.
We look for things like, okay, do people have food? Do they have water? Where are they sleeping? So you look at those standards, because when someone is taken to a place of detention, the only thing that they have removed from them is the ability to move. But everything else that you need as a human being is supposed to be provided, including things like health.
Furthermore, the assessment is based on the suspects or inmates' access to justice. The Commission makes recommendations for the improvement in the enjoyment of human rights by suspects or detainees in order to ensure Uganda's compliance to human rights obligations.
So generally it's a way of keeping track of what is happening in the community.
Compiling annual human rights reports and periodic reports. The Commission is mandated to submit annual reports to the Parliament of Uganda on the state of human rights and freedoms in the country. The annual report is a documentation of the Commission's interventions in fulfillment of its mandate and an analysis of the human rights situation in the country. The annual report also contains the Commission's recommendations on the improvement of the human rights situation in the country, and the said recommendations are directed at specific actors for implementation. The Parliament of Uganda is supposed to follow up on the implementation of the recommendations made by the Commission in its annual reports.
From our monitoring, we get this information to be able to provide that in those reports to Parliament and generally to the public, for them to know this is what is happening in places of detention, this is what's happening in regard to health, this is what's happening in regard to education in the country.
In the recent past, the Commission has come up with the innovation of the Braille version of its annual reports for people with impaired vision.
And it has helped blind people to understand and read for themselves what the report says and what the work of UHRC has been, which is very important. Instead of relying on other people to read for you, you can read it for yourself.
It actually received a lot of positive reaction from the people, persons with disability, mainly people could not be able to, people who needed to use the Braille version.
The Directorate reviews bills before Parliament to determine their compliance with human rights standards. The Commission communicates its views to the relevant parliamentary committees.
When bills go to Parliament, we're supposed to be able to get them and see if what has been provided is in accordance, in line with our Constitution, is in line with what we have agreed at different levels. So, for example, the Public Order Management Act, which was a bill, we looked at it and we made recommendations to improve this bill to say maybe the requirement of having only 4 people meeting cannot be defined as an assembly.
Directorate of Regional Services. This directorate is in charge of the Commission's decentralization program. In a bid to decentralize and take its services closer to the people, the Commission has established regional and field offices. The mandate of the Commission is implemented by the regional offices. The 10 regional offices are Central, Masaka, Mbarara, Hoima, Fort Portal, Arua, Gulu, Moroto, Soroti, and Jinja. The 10 field offices are Nakapiripirit, Kabirabaido, Kapchora, Buvuma, Kalangala, Moyo, Kitgum, Lira, Pader, and Kotido.
We thought by creating regional and field offices we would have solved the problem of accessibility, but it is far from being fully resolved. For instance, we have a regional office in Mbarara, but that covers the traditional Ankole and Kigezi regions. It is still a challenge for somebody to come from Kisoro and get services at our regional office in Mbarara.
Major constraints of the Commission.
We would like to see the Commission closing this gap where people have got to travel long distances. Majority of the people we serve are the indigent within this country. So the more you go nearer to them, the better.
We want to see the Commission being able to get those people who have been awarded the compensation receive their money, because that's the biggest challenge and it undermines the credibility of the Commission.
Some of the successes of Uganda Human Rights Commission over the years.
At a regional level, the Uganda Human Rights Commission was nominated as the best national human rights institution in Africa. We call it the best NHRI. And that does not come because we are seated, but because we have been recognized at the continent or on the continent that we have made a difference in people's lives.
It has brought awareness of human rights to Ugandans because we have a department, research, education and documentation, which is charged with the civic education. It goes out to the public, and in every regional office we have somebody from that department. They go to the public to educate them on their rights.
When you look at our statistics and our data, you realize that we have handled so many torture cases, and our aim is to kick torture out of Uganda. So, and you look at the trends of torture, you realize that there is a tremendous decrease in the cases and the violation against torture. We have made headway because we spearheaded the drafting of the anti-torture law, and we even pushed for it until it was passed. So now torture is a crime in Uganda.
Another milestone in the offing is that the Commission plans to have her own home. The Commission owns plot 20 to 24 Uganda Road. If the Commission should retain this property, that is where the new home will be. Already, a public-private partnership procurement process has been initiated.